I mean, leaving my corporate career was a massive financial decision. I'd worked so hard to get there. Why was I leaving? And for me, what it was is I had to go through cancer. Started tech moms out of anger. I just got mad. I was just done. I'm like, why do we have this highly talented, highly educated, underutilized workforce that we're just ignoring?
How has the overall culture shifted with women in the workplace, but also working moms going into tech?
Um, I'd like to say it's gotten better and it hasn't.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Psychology of Business podcast. We have a very exciting episode today with Trina Celeste. Now, about halfway through the interview, there were some technical issues where we lost video, where we lost audio, and we had to restart the recording a couple times. So you're going to be able to hear the audio from the recording, but the video is going to cut out the second half of the video, which is unfortunate because that's where I feel like the interview really got to some of the best parts. And I ultimately had to cut this interview short. There were a lot of avenues that I wanted to explore, but just due to some of the technical difficulties with the software I was using, I wasn't able to fully explore and ask Trina all of the different questions I had for her. So I'm really hoping we can get her back on to the show. But this is a great episode. We talk about her career. We talk about her cancer diagnosis. We talk about all the great work she's doing now with her nonprofit. So I encourage you to listen to this episode with Trina Celeste. But as always, you have a great day. Happy learning and have a good listen. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Psychology of Business podcast. My name is Brandon Griffin. Today is November 3rd, and we have a very exciting episode for you today. Joining me in my virtual studio is Trina Celeste, and we are going to hear all about her story, about the company she's worked for, about her educational and her career journey, and also the new book that she has out. So I'd like to welcome to the studio, Trina. How are you doing?
I am fabulous. Thanks for having me on.
So if you are in the Utah tech space, you probably know Trina, but could you give us a brief bio, a brief background about who you are and what you've been doing and what you're currently working on now?
Yeah, it's hard to cover 30 years of tech in 30 seconds, but I'll do my best. I've been a lifetime learner, grew up in a very challenging financial situation with my family. We didn't have the financial means, but I somehow saved up my dollars and made it into my first job, I guess, my first real job. I'm going to step back a little bit. My first job, I remember thinking, I've got to find a way out because I was working at this fast food restaurant called Vittles. And I'm sliding around on like greasy floors and I'm arguing with my coworkers on whose burger order is whose, like who really cares? But we were very passionate, I guess. And I got to this moment where I'm like, what am I doing? I cannot live this life, right? And I think a lot of people have that feeling of like, you're on this trajectory that depending on your circumstance or where you come from and all of that, and you just have that wake up moment where you're like, this is not how I see my life going. And that was very pivotal for me. And I saved up my Vittles dollars. That was the fast food restaurant. A lot of people know it now as Arctic Circle, but I saved up those dollars and I got into my first, so all I could afford was just those first few classes at a local university here called Utah Valley University. And I actually went out into architectural engineering to start, but one of the classes they had me take was a Pascal programming class. And I went, this is awesome. I think this computer science thing might be something. It wasn't even tech or high tech back then in 1994. It was like, a light bulb turned on for me. And it was like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I never looked back. I never really said, oh, am I doing the right? It was just like, that's the way I'm going. So I switched my degree and went into computer science. I worked graveyards. I've always worked full time. I don't think I've ever not worked. That's probably why people are like, why are you so driven? Is because I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to not work, right? It's like I have this sense of urgency. But I went into computer science. I did that, did a bachelor's in business and information systems, a master's in business, just kind of started building my career. And my first job is a network engineer at a company called Novell, and worked with Fortune 500 clients, really discovered the fact that not only did I understand the technology and the business, but I had a really great skill set of being able to speak with people, which not all technologists had that capability, right? It's like they could put me in front of a board when we couldn't print the newspaper at New York Times and I could talk my way through it, which was pretty imperative. I found out that's a great skill set to have along with your technology skills. But it led to this amazing career. I ended up working and doing sales for a while, did technical sales at Oracle, sold CRM systems for many years, competed against Salesforce. That was a lot of fun in quotes. Um, and then moved on to eBay, set up their account management systems, moved into CX, led product teams, ran technology operations, PMOs, resource management, contract, legal. It just led to all of these different opportunities I had throughout my career. And then went back to Oracle at the end of this. Like I said, I'd take 30 seconds. It's like I said, it's hard to do. But my last kind of corporate, like true corporate job was senior director of professional services at Oracle and implemented for large enterprise. So Charter Communications, the Berkshire Hathaway Energies, really large scale enterprise deployments. And towards the end of my career, I had this opportunity where an idea for creating adult non-traditional learning pathways for individuals returning to the work or transitioning their careers into technology, and founded a nonprofit called Tech Moms that just took off. And we've been now in it 5 years. We just had our 5-year anniversary. We put over 800 women through our courses and 50 cohorts run. We've been Utah's Nonprofit of the Year. Microsoft selected us to help end the digital divide, the only nonprofit in the whole state of Utah that received that recognition. Just had a lot of impact and the life transformations. It's not just tech career transitions we're making. We're making complete life transformations for our alumni and their families. So it's been an incredible run. I feel like I'm still just getting started. So it's always crazy to think back on 30 years and go, I still got a lot to do. I just let's get going.
Well, good. That is very exciting. I have a lot of parallels. So my first job was actually Taco Amigo, a little fast food
Oh,
restaurant. Hmm.
that's
And
my
I was
friend's favorite restaurant, by the way. We just found out Brandon and I are both from this town called Pleasant Grove. Taco Amigo is like the fast food restaurant to go to in Pleasant Grove, Utah. So that's really fun to have that connection.
It is. And I actually enjoyed my time there, but there's something working with fast food. I was so happy when I didn't have to, deal with customers in that way and deal with food. It's a great place, but I was happy to be done with that. But I want to jump to what you talked about at the end there. You talked about tech moms. Is one reason why you're so driven to do that? Is that because it kind of parallels your story of how you went from Arctic Circle? I didn't know it was called Vittles, but Arctic Circle to kind of this tech world and exploring this whole new world that you didn't know really existed and actually didn't exist until we get towards end of 90s beginning of the 2000s.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of things happening for me. When I did my computer science degree, I was, you know, one of very few women in the classes. All my classes, I never went to school with another woman. It was all men. And so looking around, I'm like, why am I the only one here? Where is everybody? Because I could see the opportunity. I just couldn't understand why people weren't choosing this as a career. And I wrote my thesis paper in 1995 on why women should go into computer science. So this has not been like I just woke up one day and, oh, now this is something. It's been something I've been extremely aware of, um, and and couldn't understand why we put individuals into roles that really aren't great for them. So we have a lot of teachers and nurses. There's nothing against those careers, but they're not great mom jobs, right? If you're going to be a mom, go into the jobs that are going to allow you to have flexibility and remote working and higher pay and benefits and give you independence. And it's just we've been socialized into the wrong jobs as mothers. And that was very real for me. And then as I went through my career, I was at eBay. I became the global president of their ERG, their Women in IT organization, and we had 1,500 members in 17 countries. And I was leading coding camps for employees' daughters. And it was really amazing because I had my colleagues coming like, this is so great. Well, what about my wife? Or I have a sister or my neighbor could use a career in tech. They just don't know how. or they're not even aware of the opportunities. They just don't even have the knowledge or the terminology to know where to start. They just hear that's where the jobs are. Maybe I should go figure this out. And they just don't have a pathway to do that. And so that's kind of where it all stemmed from is a lot of different circumstances and situations and conversations and through my whole life of recognizing the need and nobody else was solving it. And I remember going to a conference once and they were talking about the power of one. You ever heard that analogy? Like we all can see that there's a problem. We always think it's somebody else that's going to solve it. And when it doesn't happen, we can get angry about it, or we can get angry and do something about it. And that's where I got is I started getting mad. I'm like, why is nobody fixing this? Right? You can complain all you want, but if you're not willing to go in and do the work to get it done, then stop complaining. And and so that's where I kind of, you know, I joke, but it's real. I joke tech I started tech moms out of anger. I just got mad. I was just done. I'm like, why do we have this highly talented, highly educated, underutilized workforce that we're just ignoring and not enabling. And so that's where the concept came from.
And that's a great idea. I actually had a conversation with my sister a week or two ago. I said, if you can find somehow to utilize moms, you would have one of the most skilled, dedicated workforces out there. But you're going to have very specific, I don't want to say challenges. You're going to have hurdles that you're going to have to come over because you may not be able to, work traditional hours. You may have flexibility that you're going to have to offer. But that's a huge untapped resource that
Yeah.
you're trying to solve.
Yeah, you fix flexibility, you talk about commitment, those women are gonna be so committed to you. I see it in the individuals I've hired throughout the years. When I was at eBay, I was actually sharing this story with somebody at lunch today about how she worked full time for me as a technical project manager, and she was based out of Germany, and her kids were growing up. She's like, "You know what? I really need to have some time for them, but I don't wanna quit." And I'm like, "Well, let's just have you work part-time." But when I went to HR and I was like, "Look, I don't wanna lose this employee. Let's go part." It took me 2 months fighting them to say, "We need to have part-time roles. Why is that so hard? Like, what's the challenge here? Why do we say we have to fit these traditional time and working hours and everything else? Like, that just doesn't we're excluding people because of that." Well, I fought and I got our first part-time role ever. Nobody else had done it. And she just compartmentalized. In those 4 hours that she worked, she was hyper focused. She got more done than my full-time employees. So why do we disregard and say, well, you don't come in from 8 to 5? I can tell you they are not productive the full 8 to 5 hours that they're coming in the office. And so it's just these mindset shifts that need to happen of what is a really good employee. And it's really focusing on the results rather than just being in the seat.
Mhm.
That is so key. And I think it's lazy leadership in my mind if you're not able to do that, of like having a conversation, what's going to work for you in your life schedule right now. And this ties into a lot of the principles that I talk about in my book of how do you become a leader that can lead anybody, regardless of what's going on in their life, and still get results and high performance out of that person. That's a great leader, not somebody that can just sit in the seat next to somebody that's sitting in the seat.
Yeah. And I think leaders traditionally have known, you're going to be in the office from 9 to 5. You're going to have your 2 weeks of vacation a year. And we saw, during the pandemic, a lot of people worked from home and they were just as productive as they were in the office. Now, the pendulum may have swung too far where, we may have lost some of the in person culture. But I think that there's definitely something to be said there. But going back to your education when it first started, to where you were the only woman in the classroom, to today, how do you feel like the culture of technology has changed? I've interviewed Susan Madsen. She's done a lot of work on women in the workplace, specifically in Utah. I've interviewed a couple other academics about gender and leadership. But for you, boots on the ground, what changes have you seen from when you're literally the only woman in the classroom to today and through tech moms? How has the overall culture shifted with women in the workplace, but also working moms going into tech?
Um, I'd like to say it's gotten better and it hasn't. I wish I could say that. We still have a lot of challenges to overcome. And and I don't want to, it's not in a negative way, it's in a realist way, right? I don't want to sugarcoat and be like, "Oh, we're all like thriving and happy and it's all work." No, it's not. It's still a ton of work. And the ladies that go through our programs work their tails off. Like it is like we run a cybersecurity course 8 months on Saturdays because they're so passionate about learning. You tell me you don't want an employee like that because they're a mom? Like, that's a problem, right? And so we have to get over there's a lot of mindset shifting stereotypes, things that biases that still exist today that still need to be overcome. Um, I do a lot of work with CIOs and CTOs and CEOs at the executive level, and we have these conversations, but it's still this challenge of they'll say, "Well, we put out a job offer and we got 106 applicants and there was only one woman." And I'm like, "Well, don't you see that as a problem? Why is that? Why is it the pipelines aren't there? What do we need to invest in right now so that that story changes?" And that's a lot of what was there for me when I was hiring. This is part of when I started Tech Moms, and I was looking for talent, not necessarily female, but just local talent, right? And I put out a job for a solution architect. I had to hire off visas. I'm like, why can't I find local talent? And, we have a lot of these immigration challenges right now that are impacting us. And at the same time, are we investing in the people that we need to have to be able to say, yeah, I got 50 applicants and they were all local and they had the education and skill sets and experience that I needed? We're we're just not investing in our people or looking at the the potential workforce the way we need to. We're still carving off only so much space for a few select, and we need to stop doing that.
And someone like you, I feel like could get in there, and even if there were obstacles in your way, even if there are obstacles, you're someone who's going to succeed. It just sounds like you even said to yourself, you can't stop working, you can't stop being focused towards something. But what
Something
you're talking,
I got too many somethings. That's my challenge.
yeah,
I have to pull back and refocus a lot. It's not ADD. I don't know what it is. It's just like I can see so much opportunity. I have to narrow down what is the one thing I'm actually going to do. Tech moms will always go. It's part of my soul. It can't stop. Um, but there's so many other things I would like to do, and there's only so much time and resource. So you have to be very precious with how you allocate that time. So I think getting in the door and finding a way, what is the thing I want to be successful at, right? That's always the question.
yeah. And what you said at the end of your last comment, you're talking about education and how we're not training our people, to have this localized workforce or this workforce that we can have be productive in our companies, and that's something that's important to me as an educator at a university. So, what can I do in my class to help all students be successful? But specifically in your work, you said we're not there yet. If the needle's moved at all, we're definitely not there yet. What can I do, or what can people do to help advance this work forward?
I think it depends on where you're at. There's always something you can do depending, lift from all sides, basically. It can't all be done in higher education. I mean, there's some revamping. One of the things that I've been working heavily, I sit on boards at 3 universities here in the state. And we're always talking about project based learning, but do we actually do it? Do we engage industry? And things are going to move so fast now. You know how slow it is in higher education, right? There's some fundamentals there, right? Those pieces, but there's certain areas that need to move extremely fast, and that's technology and business. They're both changing drastically in in how we engage, hire, train, and then execute, right? And even how we're doing our strategy now is we used to do these annual strategies. You got to do it like every week, almost every month, every quarter. It's the speed is changing, and then how we do it and how it's being enabled. The tech enablement is massive opportunity. So in the classroom, the more that you can engage real life projects through capstone projects, we do those within Tech Moms. It solves two things. First, it creates awareness for us on how great our talent is that we're producing out of our coursework. And it creates the relationship with the business, and then the business benefits because they get to have some project work done for them, right? So that to me seems like a simple. I know it takes a lot more effort to put those programs together. I understand the challenges on like just time and resource to be able to say we got this project and we've got the wraparound services to make sure that they understand how to do it and execute it. It takes some focus. But in my mind, that's how you get that real life experience, and then also create the relationships that are so critical right now, especially if you're coming out of a higher education institution. How hard is it to get a job right now? It's
Yeah,
really,
it's
really hard.
mhm.
So if you've built relationships with companies, with employers prior to them graduating, that's huge. So in my mind, it's the skills, the knowledge is definitely still there as a core, but how do you apply that in real world scenarios and then build the relationships? That's how I would do it. That's and that is how I am doing it. Honestly, that's a lot of what I'm doing with Rise Next is we have AI workforce upskilling, and the organization I'm working with is Sarah's AI, and we're doing all project based learning. So by the time you finish your master's, you've built 9 projects by the time you get out the door. Not only that, but we're doing it faster. You get a master's degree in a year, and then we remove the cost barrier. It's only 500 a month for a year. So we do a subscription base so that the barriers are not there. It's just how can we adapt to the environment that we're in right now, and that we need to do it quickly.
And could you tell us more about Rise Next? So we talked about Tech Moms. We're going to dive into your book a little bit now, but can you tell us a little bit more about Rise Next? Because I think that's really interesting. The subscription model, the 1 year masters, project based learning. Higher ed is a staple of the economy. It's a staple of training students, training the workforce, but there needs to be supplemental education and experience from other places. So how are
Yeah.
you doing that through Rise Next?
So we are a consulting agency, so IT consulting, but it's primarily focused on AI capabilities and workforce development. So anytime I go in, we'll do kind of let me walk you through like a generalized client. So we'll do AI strategy. We'll come in and understand what is your business strategy. And you being in the business school, you understand that you've got to have a business vision, mission. You've got here's where we're going to go. How do I now leverage AI to help me build that strategy? And then also, what is my integration strategy for AI? Where should I? Because you're not going to just do AI for the sake of AI. You will waste time, dollars, and resource for that. Not only that, but you have a huge culture challenge right now because people are afraid of losing their jobs to AI. So they're not leaning into it. So we do a lot of workforce development training on AI readiness. And that includes bringing your teams up to speed on the value of AI and why this is a career differentiator for them, not just going to replace their job. They need to be the one that knows it, right? In order to succeed going forward. It is not optional. And but yet still a lot of companies are like, yeah, we're not going the mic. They're gonna it's gonna be in a world of hurt if you don't start doing this now. So we do the AI strategy, AI readiness audits, and then help put together that IT strategy and framework, and then upskill the workforces in that. And so that could be doing a certificate program that we offer. It could be degree seeking in like I never finished and got an actual degree. So we have an AI associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and then a master's degree that I partner with a degree seeking institution to offer that for workforce development. Um, and then we do some custom training if needed. So it just depends on what the workforce um, needs are. And it might be, and we individualize because not everybody's coming from the same level of education. And it might be, I'm working in marketing. How do I upskill and leverage AI for my marketing role or in my sales role? We have a really cool product where we personalize. So we'll scrape information on if I'm doing outreach on sales or on training or donor outreach. I work with high risk donor outreach and fundraising where we can personalize the email that's going out or how to prep for a sales call to negotiate better. I understand that person a little bit better to be able to know how they like to be communicated. So we're doing some fun things. All think it's really I enjoy it a lot actually. It's a fun space to be in right now.
All right, you used two interesting words in this interview. You've used anger, you've used fun, you've used about the projects you're
I'm
doing.
all about
So it's
emotion.
not just that's a perfect segue into your book. So you have a couple books that you've written, you have some that are coming out soon, but tell us about orchestrating life work harmony. That's a perfect segue. Tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you. So, a few years ago, I've done public speaking for a long time, and every time I go to speak, they'd be like, "Where's your book?" And I'm like, "I want to write a book. Like that's a lot of work. I don't. I just no." But I finally had somebody call me, and they're like, "No, you need to write your book." And I went, "Okay, whatever this is, I got to write it." And then I had to go, "Well, what is that? What do I write about? Right? If people are asking for it, I don't know what that even is." And I started kind of just being very intentional and aware of what are the things or the challenges or the problems that I might be able to help solve. And so this book is really a mix of memoir. It's a lot of my own personal challenges, some really hard things. It took a lot of talking about emotion. I cried a lot writing this book. Um, Still do when I listen to it or read it. But then also tying what were the lessons learned from that. And when I have been working with tech moms or some of our students, and I'm seeing these life transformations and all these hard things they have to go through, I realize that they have never been taught the skill of how to not work life balance. That's bullshit. It doesn't work. It's how do I orchestrate across all aspects of my life and find harmony? What I saw with my students was their struggle in being able to shift their life to be able to focus on themselves. And what I saw quite often is they were losing themselves in the sacrifice. It was like, I got to make sure everybody else is okay. And they have just lost all their ability to be able to lean into school or into their growth or to their own career or even their own hobbies. I'd ask people, what are your hobbies? And they're like, I don't have any. I give everything to everyone else. And I'm like, that's not okay. It's not okay that we're losing ourselves. And so I was at the gym one day as I was trying to contemplate what to write about, and it just hit me this life first model. And it's really about when you center on yourself, that's not self centered. It's okay to pause and say, I I think I want to go back to school. It's okay to say I want to have a career. It's okay to have hobbies. It's okay to understand your purpose and be able to focus on that. And so, really, this was my own journey through my own experiences in life to be able to discover that and how to orchestrate across what I call the 5 areas for life harmony. And so that starts with our mental health, right? And really understanding that nothing can grow from a garden that's full of really challenging mental health. It starts all from the inside. And then moving into our relationships and our finances, our work and career, or if we don't have, if we're retired or we're not in like community involvement or some way that we're actively involved, right? There's got to be some fulfillment through that. And then our own personal development along with that. So it's called orchestrating life work harmony. And it's not, you've got time where you're going to pause and maybe this not right now. And then I'm going to come back to it later and it's going to come back and forth. And you're just always orchestrating across all these 5 areas of your life.
So Trina, you talked about implementing these tools while from your book. Is this something that you should do day to day, or is this something that frequently happens after maybe a big blow up or a big event where something cataclysmic in your life happens where you need a pause, or everything just gets too much, too big, and you feel like things are overflowing. How do we use your book? How do we use the tools from your book?
All of the above. At the end of every chapter, I have what's called tune in moments. And I think the more frequent you get in the habit of doing that and being aware, the better off you are. So, but there is definitely, when you have those big blow ups, you definitely need to step back and take time to tune in and be like, what is not working? What do I want to re envision things to be going forward? Because I have this approach called the VCA. It's vision, commitment, in action. And if you don't know where you're going to in life, right? If we always talk about the importance of saying no, but how do you know what to say no to if you don't know what you're going to say yes to? So you've got to be able to understand, what is your vision for life? What do you want things to be like? If it's all blowing up and things aren't going and you're finding disruption in place, that's the perfect moment to stop and go, why do I have disharmony right now? What do I need to change in my, and that might be just every day a waking up intentionally and thinking about, how do I want this day to go? What would success at the end of my day look like? Or what do I want success to look like at the end of my life? Right. And then you have every paradigm within that. So, really being able to reframe, am I on track to finding harmony? Maybe I need to pause and take a time out. I joke, it's a little bit like when your kids are naughty and you put them in timeout. When your life's in disharmony, it's being naughty, you need to put yourself in timeout. You need to step back and be like, hey, this isn't going right. I need to just be quiet for a moment and recenter. And it's so hard in this time and age, like you're just running so hard all the time. And it's like, to what though? And is that going to bring you the peace and harmony you're looking for? And a lot of times when I step back and do this, I actually got done writing the book, and I realized I wrote that book for me. This was like, I'm sharing it with everybody else, but I needed that for myself. I needed to step back and go, are things where I want them to be? Am I going the direction I want to go? And a lot of times we can be driven by like the golden handcuffs. I mean, leaving my corporate career was a massive financial decision. I mean, millions of dollars of stepping back and losing stock and that annual salary that was just, I worked so hard to get there. Why was I leaving? And for me, what it was is I had to go through cancer. And in 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it just put this mindset uh, of, when I get to the end of my life, what do I want people to say about me? So what I was saying is, I don't think people understand or have that perspective that I was so fortunate to get in being able to have that. What do I want my life to look like? And I think if everybody started implementing that themselves on, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want people to say about me? What do I want my impact to be? I call it my impact heat map of how broad could be the impact. And it may just be like, I'm being kind to people, but you also want to look at, like, am I just ignoring people or saying not my problem? That's not a good thing either. Not just outwardly being mean or angry, but really seeing how you can be more involved or lift others. I feel like that is really where you find true harmony, is in that give back. And we've gotten to a place in our culture and world where it's so us versus them. I think that's just so destructive and creates disharmony for everyone involved. And we need to get back to saying, okay, let's really refocus on what's most important. And that's on our humanity and kindness and exhibiting love. And we've lost it. And that can happen in the workplace. I mean, I there's this perspective of like, um, emotions and love don't belong in the workplace. I'm sorry, but humans are emotional. Whether we like it or not, there's going to be emotions before any decisions ever made, before any type of movement forward. And the more people feel like they're loved and they're cared for, and we've got that in our workplaces, the better off we're going to be from a business perspective. And so the work that I'm doing and what I'm speaking on frequently is what I call life first leadership. It's understanding your own values and purpose, and then finding those in your team, their values and purpose. And then how do you align those two things? And that can be extremely powerful for high performing teams. So there's a lot within within the book, but I try and create prompts, and there's areas to write and really process. A lot of people will go through the book and they'll be like, "Well, I love the stories. I got through it. I just wanted to read through it, but now I want to go back and do the work." And so that's where it gets really powerful, is when you sit and really take the time and the intentionality to think about all of those questions and where you're at and what you would like to change and where you'd like things to be.
I think that dual purpose of the book would be extra powerful because if you hear a powerful story like yours, that's going to provide some motivation, some force inside you to want to change, to want to be better, to want to improve and kind of follow that trajectory that you did and people like you have. But I also think the follow up as well is important because if you are inspired by the story, but also have the tools necessary to help you go through some of those steps, that's important as well.
Yeah. I ended up um so I wrote the book, and then a lot of people listen to books anymore. So I created the Audible. And then, they're like, well, I've done it once. I want to do it again. So I created a workbook. So you can go back through it without having to do it all. It is, to answer your earlier question, it's not a one and done. Harmony is never just achieved and you stay there. Just life doesn't work that way. So it is a never ending process of working through how to recenter, refocus, and reframe back into those things that are going to bring you the most harmony in life.
And when you were talking about the golden handcuffs, I think that's so true. So I research and I study organizational behavior, which has a lot to do with the emotions and thoughts and feelings and interactions of people and groups at work. But at the end of the day, what's the most important thing? That's going to be different for everyone. But I'd say for most people, it's not necessarily what happens during their 9 to 5. It can be the interactions they have with people in their 9 to 5. It can be their family, but it's probably beyond the actual work that they're doing, at their desk or in the field what they're doing.
No, but yet so many leaders lead like it is. It's so wrong. So, that's why I'm working on this life first leadership, is being able to look and say, I recognize you have other things going on outside of the workplace. How can we enable that? And still, here's the things I need to get done. How do we make sure you're successful in life as well? If you're a
And I
leader
think
that did that, wouldn't you be just like, I want to stay with you forever?
definitely yes.
Yeah. It's fun. Some of the team that I've worked with, that reported to me before, and it's been 7 years, and we still have like a group chat. We still check in on each other. There's nothing wrong in doing that. You're not going to instant connect with everyone, but sometimes you get into these teams that are so high performance and so connected, and it's a wonderful thing to be part of. And why not try and create that?
I agree. And I think it's interesting how you first talk about kind of getting your work life, but really your life in order before we start talking about how you can do that as a leader. Because I know in my own life, and I feel like everyone probably has to go through this to transition from, being to being an adult, is at some point you have to go through something that makes you relook at your priorities.
Hmm.
For you, you've had multiple moments. You've had that experience in Vittles when you decided that there's more for yourself, but you also were, slammed with this breast cancer diagnosis that forced you to, reevaluate. You've reached it. What the turning point of Vittles, you reached the peak. You made it. Okay, what now? What next? And it kind of forced you to do that. And it's something I think that people who haven't been through that don't necessarily know what it feels like. But after they have been, they can be that leader who does that and tries to support them.
Yeah. It gives you a perspective, and I mean, I've had there's a lot more in the book of like really hard challenges I've had to make it through, and it builds a sense of resilience, when you're like, okay, I got through that. Okay, I can get through this, right? And it just comes with time of going through that and going, okay, this isn't the end of the world, going through divorce or losing all of your finances and having to start over, or dealing with mental health and, challenges with your kids, whatever it might be. Everybody is dealing with things. And it's a matter of understanding that you can control what you can control, and take power in that, and taking action in it, and refocusing on those things that you find the most important. A lot of times when I do this exercise, I use an analogy of your life is like a garden, right? And you get to bloom what you want to bloom. A lot of people I work with have a hard time doing that alone, or dreaming big. They dream limited. And it's like you're just putting on paper. Who's holding you saying you can't dream any bigger? You are. You're holding yourself limited. Nobody else is, right? Go big. Like, what would be the biggest thing? Can you think even bigger than that? Like, what would that be? And I think a lot of people really struggle with creating that sense of they deserve that, or they could have that. Like, somehow we've put these personal limits on ourselves when we do this reframing work.
And I think that's important for a lot of reasons. So going through these, big events, whether it be, losing a job or going through divorce or death or loss of faith or something, just going through, these massive events, it forces us to reevaluate what we want from our life. And I can definitely see how people would limit themselves as what would be possible. I like asking people the question, what dream car would you want? Okay, what realistic dream car would you want? I'm not talking about a Ferrari or Lamborghini. Do you want a Honda, or do you want a Toyota, or, what do you want? I can definitely see how people limit themselves if they've been in an environment where, it's been limiting, not necessarily in a bad way, but just, the natural confines of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong in like having a dream that's way big, and then just working towards it. You'll get probably further than if you kept it limited. So, yeah, it's once you get to that, it's actually kind of fun to do and be like, "Oh, what if I were to become, I don't know, president of the United States? I don't know, maybe that could happen. We'll see." I don't want that job. So, no, that is not on my vision board.
I'm sure you do a great job, but
Oh,
we're coming
thank
on the close of we're coming on the close of the
you.
hour.
Mhm.
For my listeners, I want everyone to check out Trina's book, Orchestrating Life Work Harmony: A Life First Model for Courageous Living. And I'd love to have you back to explore some more of those specific things in your life that happened, and kind of the more the meat of the book. But for now, as we are wrapping up today, is there anything you'd like to share about your journey? Anything you'd like to share about your book? Anything you'd like to share about people who are trying to improve their lives in general, but also in the workplace? What parting words do you have for us?
Uh, Transformation is possible. You just have to dream it, and allow yourself the journey. And it's going to be a journey, and journeys are typically hard, right? You fall down, you get back up, you have something get in your way, you have to remove it. It's just part of the process of knowing that. I think that for me, having gone through all of these major challenges, is when life gets really, really freaking hard, right? Like, you're not sure if you're going to live or not. I mean, like, that's probably one my biggest one, right?
Mhm.
When you lean into that and you let go, that has been the most powerful thing. I had this book by David R. Hawkins given to me when I was going through cancer, called Letting Go. And I still listen to it. Like, I'll still turn it on at the gym, just because it helps with the idea of when you like step back from like, oh, I have to have this, or I have to have that person, or that person needs to do this to make me happy, and you just let it go and be like, there's nothing I can do about it. But here's what I can do, and here's what I'm going to do, and refocus on that. That has been what's got me through everything. Is like, okay, that's done. What now? And know that when you do that, something great's going to be on the other side of it. Once you get through that hurdle, every time, something great is coming.
Thank you so much. So, for people who want to further explore your work, get in contact with you, how do they do that?
So if they want to get a hold of me, they can go to trinaceleste.com. That's where I've got my book and speaking and all of those things. If you're interested in the work we're doing in AI and workforce upskilling or AI strategy, you can go to risenext.com. That's rizenext.com. And then if you love tech moms, you want to get involved there, we would love to have you reach out. And that one is tech-moms.org.
Wonderful. Trina, I'd like to thank you for coming on our show today. We've had some technical difficulties, and of course, it's going to happen on an interview. I wanted to not have no issues. So, thanks for coming on the show.
It happens. It happens. We're all good. We're being resilient right now, right? Some
We're being resilient. We're having flexibility.
Right.
We are making it work.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Brandon. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
It has been fun. I hope to talk to you soon. Everyone, thank you for listening to this episode of the Psychology of Business podcast. Big thank you to Trina Celeste. Go buy her book, Orchestrating Life Work Harmony, a life first model for courageous living. Go to trinaceleste.com, her website. Go check out Tech Moms. Go check out Rise Next. But you have a great day. Happy learning, and I'll see you next time.